Hi, Delphine here. I wanted to spend a few moments talking about the 13th fairy. She is an archetype that has just been coming up so much in my consciousness, in my dreams, in my conversations with people, in my hands. And she just wants a little bit of space. So I thought I'd give the 13th fairy a little bit of space today for a few moments here on Instagram. And yeah, she just has been raising a lot of questions for me that have been feeling quite kind of useful and ripe at the moment. So this is an exquisite version of Thorn Rose by the Brothers Grimm, illustrated by Errol Lacane here. There she is, not invited to the party, excluded, and looking a bit shriveled and dark there, in contrast to all the beautiful guests in their exquisite outfits and creatures on their way to the royal birth party. So I suppose, yeah, like who was the 13th fairy? Was she not invited because she was mean in the first place, or did she just get mean because she was not invited? Like, did it have to look like this? There she is in her act of full-on revenge. Like, you know, she represents what is inconvenient, what is too much trouble, like the too muchness in all of us, the too much woman, like that amazing poem by Evian Whitney, I think it is. She is the gluttony, the greed, the kind of fear, the shame, the lust, like all of those things that we would rather pretend are not a part of us, but obviously are a completely natural part of being a whole human. So I have a sense that if the 13th fairies kind of in her ugly parts hadn't been excluded and was invited to the party, maybe it wouldn't have looked like this crazy end result, and maybe there wouldn't be such a terrible backlash and spell put on the princess, lasting thousands of years. You know, which part of us, which part of me, which part of you is not getting invited, is not being incorporated and honestly kind of owned, consciously owned, and also in the collective, like who is not getting a seat at the table, who is not included in the peace negotiations, in the democratic decision making process, in the discussions, who doesn't get heard, is such an interesting question to me. And who is kind of there, you know, behind the curtains or in the sidelines, holding potentially a lot of wisdom, like it really is kind of the wise woman archetype as well, that we would really actually benefit so much from hearing, and for, you know, if this voice was given some kind of space, because you know that inconvenient truth or presence that kind of lurks, that if we could just actually kind of allow a little bit of space for it, it's that voice that tends to go down like a lead balloon because it's kind of been repressed. But actually, if we could allow it some space, it probably would lead to a much more kind of even and whole, not just egalitarian, but more kind of harmonious balance. And I certainly know that the 13th fairy feels like some very kind of active in me, and I very, you know, identify with her quite a lot. It's a part of me that was definitely quite repressed in the past, in childhood, and you know, in different ways culturally, and I'm sure she's a strong part of you guys as well. So it's kind of asking that question, like what is the 13th fairy in me? Why does it not feel safe to say these things? What feels like too much? What's the thing that I bring into the equation? You know, maybe the part that is too sensitive, that is too honest, you know, that was not received well. But actually maybe it's time to bring that part back out again now. Maybe it's time for the 13th fairy to reclaim her rightful place at the party. I know that if I was at this party, I would definitely be looking to sit next to her. Like, she's kind of an interesting person. Yeah, she's not, you know, the other people are initially very attractive and beautiful, and I certainly would be attracted to the aesthetic delights and the rich foods and all of that. But ultimately, the person you want to maybe hang out with and spend some time with, who might have something new and interesting to say, who might show you a mirror to some part of you that has been not been claimed and owned yet, would be the 13th fairy. And maybe if she was allowed have more space, it wouldn't be so kind of imbalanced, and she would reclaim a little bit of her colour, would come back to life a little bit, and there would be something a bit more harmonious as a whole for each person and for the collective. So yeah, just an invitation to pose that question. What parts of you have been consistently denied, and what's the 13th fairy in you? Who is she in you, and what does she look like? And what would it look like if she came out to play What would a 13th fairy, what would a party of 13th fairies look like? That would be amazing. So I'll leave you with that image.